Salvete mihi nomen est, Stella, ad hoc est Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 218 for February MMXXII. Batgirl to Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. Well, I think this is one of those episodes that is an example of, I don't know, forbearance and grit. And I think had I recorded this right after getting back from New York City, I would have been in a better emotional place than I am right now, just with work really taking a turn. And I now call it my prison. So if I ever go on a walk during lunch, which I've been doing just to get out of there, I usually say either to myself or if I'm on the phone with my mother, "Oh, it's time to go back to the prison." So we shall try to persevere and not show the emotional strain that it is taking on me, and have some uplifting conversations. Maybe this will be a fun set of issues, maybe not. That was another reason why it was tough. I've delayed this recording for so long because I thought, oh man, I got to talk about those issues. So first, I do want to talk about my trip to New York City. I can't remember which winter storm it was, but I was in the thick of it. Kind of reminds me of some of those reels that pop up on Instagram, and it's like children or something saying "into the thick of it." That was certainly what was going on. So the plan was to take the train up from Charlottesville to NYC, and then NYC to Poughkeepsie. And then my chief Tata correspondent, Professor Karen Coco, was going to pick me up and then drive me to her locale, which is in New Paltz, New York. And then that would have been on a Friday. Then Saturday, driving down early and seeing the matinee of Company, which is what I chose when I won those tickets. And yeah, so that was the plan. And then, I guess hanging out in the city, then coming back Saturday evening, and then just hanging out with Carolyn and her family on Sunday, and then going back home on Monday. So the week prior to this, out of the blue, Carolyn texted me and said, "Should we see another show? We're seeing this matinee. Should we see another one since we're there?" And I basically said, I'm never going to turn down the opportunity to see another show. And then the question of what is it? And I asked her if there was anything that she wanted to see. I really want to see Moulin Rouge. She said, I was giving her the option. She said Music Man ? Which of course, Music Man has at the moment has Hugh Jackman as Harold Hill and Sutton Foster, the great Sutton Foster, as Marion the Librarian. So I was like, sure, let's see what we can do. I knew that those were kind of expensive. Who knew if we were going to be able to find seats or not? We found seats up in the mezzanine near the back, I believe. I think when I saw them, I said, I've seen this. This is the price tag. And then the question, well, do we risk it or not? Not only, well, mainly because of COVID, because the winter storm was not yet a threat. And it's not a sure thing. Obviously, people get COVID multiple times, but I knew that Hugh and Sutton both had COVID already. And so I thought, well, maybe chances are smaller that they won't have it again so immediately after when they first got it. And if anything else happens, they'll just cancel it, and we won't have lost anything. So we decided to get those Music Man tickets. And then because I had free tickets, it's almost like it balances out anyways. So, oh, wow, now we're going to see the Music Man. And then the beginning of that week, I get a text that is a weather report from Carolyn and says, look at the bottom and it says 10 to 16 inches coming in on, I think, Friday night to Saturday, early Saturday morning. And she says, I've been in New York my entire life, but I'm not going to be driving through an inch per hour of accumulation, that sort of thing. So, heart palpitations begin, prayers begin, send out, requests as well, like, hey, yeah, pray for this situation to resolve itself. And it significantly drops midweek. It was like 1 to 2, 2 to 3. And so that was more manageable. And then starts ticking back up again to the point where I'm on the train and we're still conversing about what to do, basically, that there is going to be accumulation. It's going to be harder to get into the city. What should we do? Trying to figure out lodgings and things like that. So I do want to say about the train that I always prepare myself for waiting situations as well as travel with a book. I think that it is a wise venture. If you don't care for books, I'm sure that you bring some sort of technology so you can watch Netflix or something. So I always bring a book. Now, the book I needed to read was The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, because that was going to be our next recording with Tom. And so I thought, oh, I'll be able to knock out a good chunk of this since I also have some grad school readings to do. This will be good. So I'm in the train station reading, and I just mind my own business. No one needs to talk to me when I'm reading a book. It gets to a point actually where, I mean, this is like an antisocial awareness thing, or an alarm should go off if someone's reading a book. Don't try to have a conversation with them. No one does. But now I'm outside waiting for the actual train, and this guy starts chatting me up, and he says, I noticed you were reading there. What were you reading? And I said, oh, The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, which, when I guess should have been, it should be potentially, if you are aware of literature, a red flag for anyone chatting you up that maybe you're unstable. Which, when I was telling this story to Carolyn on the way back from the city, she started guffawing because of how funny that is. And he had not heard of it. And I mean, how do you even describe it? I basically just said that it's about a young woman in the city who has an emotional breakdown, which, of course, it gets a bit deeper and darker than that. And he asked if it was good. And I was like, yeah, it's always hard for me to use modifiers when describing that sort of literature or anything that's kind of difficult. I'm like, yeah, it's good. It's worthwhile. Are you really enjoying it? Maybe enjoying like the literature itself or the writing, but the subject matter, maybe not. And he noticed my buttons and said, I noticed your butt, which I hate the Joker, I think. And he was talking about the different Jokers and when Jared Leto was cast, and he had no idea who that was, and Rock Band. And who doesn't know Jared Leto? But he I guess he's old fashioned music. So I'm being polite, but I'm not up for this. And I'm also thinking to myself, please don't sit next to me or near me on the train, because I really need to do some homework. And luckily he just sits behind me. But there were at least 2 or 3 conversations that he had on the train where I guess he recently got out of a relationship, and then come to find out his girlfriend was a stripper. He met his girlfriend at a strip club, and he was telling his mom, he was telling a good friend. I don't know why it was being broadcast in that way. Part of me was like, he's aware that I'm in front of him. Is he trying to show that he's single? But then also I'm thinking, why would anyone want to date someone who has met someone, whose previous girlfriend had, well, that's not even necessarily true, because that's, I think, somewhat judgmental. But let's just say, would I want to date someone who frequents strip clubs? I think that would be more of an issue rather than the person. She could have been lovely. I don't know. So anyway, that was just like a little aside. Did my work. He got off at Philly, and I get picked up. Snow is kind of already coming down in certain places. Get picked up. Now we're having this conversation, Carolyn and I, about what to do. Get to her house. Lots of, back and forth. And I just feel like I think we should go down tonight. If nothing happens, then hey, we spent a little extra money, or we got there early, but we're safe. But if something does happen and we chose not to do that, then we could potentially miss the show. And I talked to the agent that was with me in processing the tickets, and she said that she couldn't cancel the tickets unless the actual show was canceled. So really, it was up in the air. So now, what are we going to do? So I decided to look up some hotels. We find a hotel. So our musicals are, I think, 47th and 51st. Found a hotel on 50th, and I think it was like $109 a night. And then all of a sudden, once we were I mean, that was astounding. Once we were processing it all out, a little pop-up popped up and said, if you provide us with your email, you can get $50 off. It was something like that. So now it's like dropped significantly. So now we have this pretty good hotel and an amazing area. Now I've got to find parking, which I didn't know that parking in New York City is like $40 for 2 hours, but we were able to find parking 24 hours for $40. So all of these things are coming together. We end up having dinner and then leaving about 9:30 again to the city. The city is, oh my gosh, it's like a scene out of I Am Legend. Only some people are walking across. The snow's already been falling and there's some accumulation, but no cars on the road. So it's pretty crazy. Get to our parking, check into the hotel, find out that breakfast at the hotel is $5, which again, in the city, in New York City, that's kind of astounding. And basically just go to sleep, wake up. It's Hoth out. It is definitely Star Wars Hoth. We have to find Tauntauns to rent. No, we waited. We did a late checkout. The breakfast was lovely, by the way. And for the first time, I had greens during breakfast, like a little salad. That was something that was unexpected. But we did a late checkout and basically just walked straight to our theater. We left about, I guess, 1:15 or so, and just fingers crossed, that we would be able to get in. And they were very gracious and just let us go right in. And for company, which was our first show and the one that I got, just the playbill for that, 6 rows back in orchestra center. So I'm so appreciative to Prudential and that contest and everything, and playbill.com. And that was just very gracious. And I'm ever so appreciative of that. I really liked or loved, I loved that whole experience. I really liked company. I have one regret is that when Katrina Lenk came out, no one clapped for her, but of course everyone clapped for Patti LuPone, and I regret not starting to clap for Katrina Lenk. But I remember reading some review, and it's pretty middling, and saying that it wasn't very interesting, that the set wasn't too interesting, and Bobby in general is a boring character, more or less. And the only person that this reviewer had seen that spiced Bobby up was in the 2007 revival with Raul Esparza. But I really liked it. I really liked Katrina Lenk as a gender swapped Bobby. I thought that the set was actually really interesting because the first half of this musical, which the musical is about a woman turning 35, originally a man, and still single, and all of her friends are either in serious relationships or together or perhaps on the precipice of a divorce, and she finds out different things about relationships, and there's also question, why does she want one? Does she need one? So lots of like societal pressures coming in, which gender flipping, I think it spoke to me more because as a woman of a similar age, those sort of societal pressures have been coming at me for longer than I would like, unfortunately, like ever since leaving college, wondering when are you going to settle down, when are you going to have kids, etc., that kind of stuff, being asked inappropriately. So I definitely was getting a lot of vibes of like, yeah, I feel you, Bobby. But the first act are really a set of disparate vignettes where Bobby is visiting these different couples, and there's no connective tissue with the exception of Bobby, but the set really brings it together. And rectangles and squares, and they'll move, and then she is able to like move physically from one space to the other, just like she's moving from one vignette to the other. And yeah, I really liked it. I think it was really interesting changing the genders around. I wondered, if there'd be a sense of slut shaming or not, because Bobby as a man has these 3 women that, he kind of bounces between and tries to figure out if he should be with one of them. So I wondered, oh, what's it going to be like if it's a woman now? But I didn't get that sense of, oh, look, she's promiscuous, that kind of thing. And they did lots of really fun and I think original ideas. I mean, I've never seen any other production, but one scene where she wakes up after being sleeping with the flight attendant, and you have this like movement and round where you have different aspects of her. Bobby with the flight attendant, Bobby with this, I think he was a doctor, and then Bobby with this kind of like bohemian guy. And what is that like? And they keep going around and around and adding new characters and just what would her life be like with each of them. That was really interesting. I find that one song, Not Getting Married Today, I think that's what it's called. It's so frenetic that I was just really intrigued to see how it was going to go. And it's done really well with the angelic singer popping out, or I guess they call her a priest, popping out at different places. So it was really good. And then of course the second act really focuses in on Bobby and Bobby questioning everything. So I liked it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about that in particular. I also wondered, when you switch to a woman, if the women in the relationships become a bit more suspicious of Bobby and what her relationship is like with the men, but I didn't get that sense either, even though there could have been some people that may have had some attractions to Bobby. But it switches up like Joanne, I think originally propositions Bobby as a man, but here she propositions her husband for Bobby, which was interesting. So there are changes, but I enjoyed it, like I said. And I think the powerful number that everyone expects, being alive, I think it was that one. Everyone expects like a huge, powerful number. And I like how Katrina did it, where she broke down and at one point, I guess really during the second verse, was it being alive? I think so. Um, she struggles, spitting out what she is trying to say. So I recommend it if you can see it. There should be. Unless it's someone is waiting. I don't think so. No, I'm pretty sure it's being alive. But anywho, I think that's it. So then we left. No stage dooring, which is really sad. I always love to do that. Went to Junior's to eat, which is always a delight. That's something I always tried to do. And I was like, sleep was kind of falling over me. Just I didn't sleep well. And that whole traveling, it was a long day on Friday. So I needed to pick me up. So, shout out to all those people who really love coffee. I did have a cappuccino with my cheesecake at Junior's, but it was good because it gave me enough energy for the Music Man. And I know everyone was super excited for Hugh Jackman, but I have to say I was really excited to see Sutton Foster, who is someone that I really respect, ever since her journey from Thoroughly Modern Millie. And I just find her to be an amazing singer and dancer. But Hugh, I mean, I'm not going to stub my nose at him. It was really good. Hugh Jackman brings such charisma to a guy who's, basically a villain. He's not a nice guy, but to see that journey. And I read another review. So there's a lesson here at the end of this. And I read another review that there's no chemistry between him and Sutton. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But the dance sequences were amazing. Sutton wasn't given much dancing to do, which is like her forte, but she was given a tap number at the end, which I feel like was totally catering to her. But some of the ballet movements and things and all the chorus and what they were able to do is just really amazing. Some like the first, I guess, 76 trombones, all of that dancing, the dancing inside the library, it was really great. And I had fun with it. As a musical that's not like on my top list of musicals, I enjoyed it. And it was definitely to see the two leads. And I think they really shined through. It was interesting because the audience was like super duper into it. And to an annoying extent, because I may be a Broadway snob, but I would love for clapping not to begin until, the end of a note, especially if it's a sustained note. You don't necessarily know. People clap after like a couple bars because they're like, oh my gosh, they sustained that note for so long. But honestly, we could miss something and let them sustain the note and then clap and give them their due. But yeah, people were loving it for sure. So yeah, recommendations. I usually get a Broadway t-shirt per show. Here's mine from Music Man. I didn't get one from Company, though I did get a magnet. The Company ones weren't as interesting, and since they're $40, I wasn't about to spend $80 in one go on t-shirts. So I think I'm okay with that one, and then my playbills, of course, which will go in my playbill binder because I'm a nerd, and yeah, so then that evening so I do wanna say that we didn't get to do too much, because of the Hoff-like conditions, and we spaced it out enough that we were able to just go straight to the theaters, but I was loving it. I was loving the conditions. I loved it. I cannot say enough how much enjoyment I got out of those snowy conditions. I was like skipping around and running to to the extent that I'm pretty sure I probably annoyed Carolyn when I every time we were about to go outside, I'm like, oh, it feels downright balmy. So I loved it. I apologize to Carolyn for maybe getting on her nerves with how much I loved it, but we had to pick up our bags that we checked at the hotel and then also get um the car from the parking lot at the very end, and she was not about to do 6 blocks. I was willing to do 6 blocks. I said, well, I'll go get those bags and then I'll come to you. Must have been a miscommunication. So I'm like having my fun time. I pick up the bags, having my fun time back at the parking lot, which was by the Gershwin Theater, by the way, so Wicked gets left out. Waiting. Carolyn's not there. I'm thinking, uh-oh, miscommunication. So I had to go back, but that was fine by me because I loved that type of weather, and I was just taking pictures of all the snow accumulation. Man, I just need to live back in the state of New York again so I can get back to this. I miss Buffalo so much. And we drove back and had our conversations, and the drive back wasn't like the drive up there because the conditions were completely different. Slept in a bit, maybe like till 9 a.m. or something on Sunday, and we watched some things. So we caught up on, remember that Carolyn is a bully, so she kept wanting me to watch some stuff about Titans. So we watched some scenes of Barbara in Titans. I'm a bit baffled. I don't know if I want to bring it all back up, but the fact that Barbara Gordon in Titans, I thought it was Selena Kyle. I think there was like some sort of flashback. I turned to Carol and I said, oh, is it Selena Kyle? And she says, no. And then I went, no, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Yes, it was Barbara Gordon, who apparently steals things and then contracts Dick Grayson into stealing things. And then they have a happen in time. And then someone dies on their watch because they're doing all of this funsy stealing. I don't understand. She also says the F word, which I don't think my Barbara Gordon would do, except maybe one time to Batman. She does let Batman have it, which I feel like is in character. She would do that more so than other people. And there was, of course, some sexy time between her and Dick. But otherwise, I would say I'm not really sure who that Barbara Gordon is. And then someone on Twitter had recommended I see a Batwoman episode where Stephanie Brown pops up. So we found what that was and watched it. And guess what? That's not Stephanie Brown. You know who that is? That's Barbara Gordon. I'm saying it's Stephanie Brown in name only, but that was super bizarre. And then we watched Boba Fett, episode 5, maybe, which was Mandalorian based. And she betrayed me, by the way, because before that, I had said, oh, wait to watch that with me. And then the week of, she said, oh, did you watch Boba Fett? And I was like, are you kidding me? I told you to wait. So there was some betrayal there, I just want to say. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else we watched. Funny thing happened on the way to the forum. So we had some Stephen Sondheim continuing through. I had never seen that, of course, Roman history. And then I wanted to watch Promising Young Woman with her, which, of course, that's just something that I push on many people because I like to watch it with other people and have discussions with them about it. And yeah, and then Monday was when I was setting off, and she drove me to the station and said adieu. I gave her my handkerchief, and as you do. No, I'm just kidding. And yeah, and I guess that was basically it. The train ride down was pretty interesting. Well, going up, you had to have a seat open because it started to get packed, but on the way down, I was able to have my own double seats the entire time and could kind of put out my schoolwork and stuff. So that was nice. And yeah, and then got back. I took off Tuesday, but apparently I didn't tell my boss that I took off Tuesday. So she was wondering where I was. And then on Wednesday, I immediately got reprimanded for not saying that I was going to be off on Tuesday. So I had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But overall, yeah, NYC was great. I think if I were to do an NC-17 rated podcast episode, I'll tell you everything that you never thought you wanted to know about the Cocas. And I think I could charge a premium for that, put all the ads on it, put all the ads. But that was basically it. Yeah. So I'm just blessed that everything worked out. I think, while my prayers were, please let that snow not come. I think that there was a no for that, but everything else worked out accordingly. So say what you will about the, prayers, but they're usually answered, just not necessarily how you want them to. Okay, I think that's it about NYC. My last thing just before these reviews is the Find Your Joy segment, Shags, Mac and Cheese, a Comfort and Joy. And I will say, because times have been tough, as I alluded to at the top, but I have been playing. It took me entirely too long to, but just because time management and what I've been doing with school and everything. I've been playing, and I just finished Cana Bridge of Spirits, and that just came out in 2021, late 2021 or early 2022, and I really loved it. I mean, it's like a game just for me. I really like Cana. There are really cute little creatures named Rot that accompany you. I mean, that's absolutely what I want. I loved the story. I thought that the story was touching, it was deep, it was fun, it has some environmental and familial and religious aspects to it, the spirits and everything. And though, more, I mean, not necessarily like Christian based, but certainly like just there's a spirituality to it. And then there's a lesbian couple on it, which that I do like the queer couples popping up. And yeah, so I recommend it. It was just a fun escapism for me in these tough times. And I have since sent it back, and I just got notified Gamefly is sending me Resident Evil Revelations, which was a recommendation that Jaime had suggested. So he's on the line for sure. We'll see if I like that or not. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about this series from 2002 to 2003 called Batman hyphen Family. And I've got to figure out where we are. One moment. Here we go. And if you are like me, you will never have heard of this, to be honest. I did not hear of this. This was similar to that Joker issue that I was trying to get away from. I was going to try to do this as quickies with Tom, and then I realized there were 8 issues of it, and I thought, oh man, I can't do it. And then I realized that Babs is in more than one, and I thought I might as well just do it as a separate. I won't spoil whether it was worthwhile or not, but I had not heard of this, and well, I guess I'll also tell you whether was it a worthwhile read? Was it worthwhile to his mythology? I did not want to write a synopsis for this. I think I'm a bit checked out from this story, I would say, rather than podcasting. But yeah, this month a lot has gone on. To Professor Allen, his chagrin, I was on multiple podcasts, so that also could be. So the DC Wiki or whatever did have really detailed, there's the word, synopses, but I was not about to read through 8 of those. And then I went on Comixology because they give pretty good publisher synopses. This book does not exist on Comixology. I was looking. All it was giving me was the Batman Family from the 70s. And then when I looked up the writer, he only has like 2 things. So apparently people are for forgetting. And then I couldn't remember, there was this website that had pretty good synopses that are short little blurbs. Couldn't find it. I remembered. So thank you to Comic Vine for these blurbs here. So Batman family, Batman colon family 1 through 8 ran from November 2002 to February 2003. Writer John Francis Moore, artists Rick Hoberg, Steve Leiber, and Stefano Gaudiano, colors Carla Feeney, Jessica Kinzierski, which 2 women, who knew, and Heroic Age. Issues 1 through 6 were illustrated by Stefano Gaudiano and Rick Hoberg, and then Steve Leiber replaced Hoberg on issues 7 and 8. Okay. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what to do here. So I guess I'll do the blurbs for each. And then I took a lot of notes on 1 and 2, and then it kind of started dying out. But I'll go, I guess, individual episodes or issues here. Okay. So issue number 1. In Bruce Wayne's long absence, Wayne Enterprises has been slowly slipping from his grasp. Now, as he squares off against an enemy who will stop at nothing to take his legacy from him, Batman also must contend with a deadly new vigilante who's recently arrived on the scene. But this potential foe is needed as an ally when a wave of new villains begins terrorizing Gotham. Issue 2. Meet the mysterious leader of the new wave of criminals who vows vengeance on Batman for very personal reasons. She begins her assault by targeting the spoiler who, get this, recently lost her gig as a member of Birds of Prey. When was she ever? Okay. Will spoiler prove to be, listen to this, the weak link in Batman's family? And when you hear part 2 of this episode, you'll realize why I stopped there. Issue 3. Get ready for Bug and Dr. Excess. Bug has eyes everywhere in Gotham, watching, recording, learning. With the heroes of Batman's circle in his sights, with the heroes of Batman's circle in his sights. And what Bug learns, Dr. Excess uses with terrible results. But what is their involvement in a spate of bizarre incidents in which normal people are transformed into raging psychotics? Black Canary aims to find out, and she's not alone, as the vigilante Orpheus, can you believe it, Orpheus, returns to help safeguard the city. 4. Who is the Suicide King? Who is the Suicide King? He's the ultimate terror, a killer so fearless he'll sacrifice his own life to kill and maim. Now he's after the heads of organized crime in Gotham City, but not for heroic reasons. This deadly minion faces pursuit on 2 fronts, as the Huntress and DEO agent Cameron Chase are on to him. Too bad for them. When this issue is over, Huntress is no longer will be a help to Batman or a threat to Gotham's newest menace. Oh, poor Huntress. 5. Meet Freeway, the right-hand man to Gotham's newest crime lord. He pulls strings, manipulates people, and gets things done, regardless of who gets hurt. Now he's targeted Robin, and Freeway isn't a man known to fail. When Robin falls into his trap, the identities of all the Bat heroes are in danger, and this time, acrobatics won't be enough. 6. His name says it all. The technician creates weapons for Athena's supervillain group, and he's also inserted himself into Gotham's underground, unleashing a panoply of new weaponry to the crime families that tear the city apart. Batman's caught wind of the arms escalation, however, and he wants it stopped. No. But the GCPD is running its own investigation, and Detectives Montoya and Allen are looking to break the case themselves, which means goodbye Batman and hello Matches Malone. 7. On the outside, he's all that's wholesome, the all-American man, sadly out of time. In reality, it's his victims who are out of time. Mr. Fun has been assigned, a surprising target, and it's up to Batgirl and Nightwing to stop him. Batman, meanwhile, discovers a deadly clue to Athena's past, but he may be too late as Athena and her gang are about to put their master plan into action. And then finally, number 8, Batman and his family, in quotation marks, launch an all-out assault on Athena and her family. But even if they win the battle, can they hope to save Gotham from a long and deadly night? All secrets are revealed, all scores settled, and when it's over, Gotham will be shaken to its very core, with the future of Wayne Enterprises determined once and for all. Okay, so let us go, I guess, individually, and then I'll talk about them as a whole. So here is the cover for the first part, Chapter 1, Perception. It's intriguing, looks like a card, and then, of course, you have, this guy here, Tracker, and he looks very sinister, and I thought, given the cover, that he was gonna last a long time, but he does not. Some things I learned, oh, yeah, it starts off with this, we actually this begins right off the bat with this Santos character, and it was someone that I had no idea who it was. He pops up repeatedly. He's involved in the gang somehow, and Batman has a sketchy deal with him. And so I was asking around, who is this Santos? Why would Batman be making a sketchy deal? It comes to light that this guy's actually undercover, and he's trying to prevent Batman and his family from getting involved until they can take down the Manchettis. So that's what the deal is, but you don't really find out until late, and it makes it seem like this guy's been around for a while. Here's Tracker. Oh, this thing. Okay, so at one point, of course, this league of photographers and news people, at one point, someone says, "Are you the father of Julie Madison's baby?" Is this just someone asking, as reporters do? Does Julie Madison actually have a child? It's very interesting. Batman goes up and he's about to get ousted from the board, and we have this Delia Wagner person, and that's yet another person who in this story seems like someone who's been around for a while. There are talks about murder fugitives, so the story is really, I think, picking up from that, and you still feel the repercussions from, well, at least Bruce does, the repercussions from that storyline, which I appreciated. But again, another person who I think is just in the story. When I tried to look her up, she had no hyperlink online, so I couldn't tell anything about her, but she gets thrown in the slammer anyway, so she doesn't last very long. So asking for his resignation because of the Bruce Jerk murder situation. Keep on going with this. You see this down here? Robin is able to do a broke back pose. Now, it is in order to get himself out of hanging chains, and we'll call it training, but good to know. Good to know. So the Tracker, we are told in an editor's note that that person is someone who has appeared in Detective Comics 773 to 775, taking down mob members and or activity, but not taking credit. So certainly it seems like this person could be on the up and up, but we later find out that it's a bit more complicated than that. I like that Robin has the idea of Bruce being Bruce for a while and the family taking care of things, and even compares it to Superman and Supergirl. But Batman says that Superman doesn't live in Gotham City, and that's why he can't do that. So I wonder if this comparison actually works. Like, is it apples to oranges and you can't compare Superman and Batman? Or is it apples to apples? I feel like Superman's not as single minded or obsessed as Batman. And I so if you put him in Gotham City, I think he would change. He would act differently. We saw that, didn't we, in No Man's Land, where Superman is over and he's trying to help out, but it's sort of, I feel like he loses some faith in his abilities and just in humanity by looking at it. So I can kind of get behind Batman. But I also wonder if Batman maybe does, and Donovan's not going to like this, but I just wonder if Batman maybe doesn't trust his family as much as Superman does, because if Superman can just take off and leave it to Supergirl, though I think in the animated series, wasn't it Supergirl when he's missing? It's like Supergirl and some robots are helping out, and a robot that is supposed to be Superman. But here, yeah, it's interesting. Could Batman not just be away? And it's also interesting, I keep using that word, because Batman isn't in the action the entire story in these 8 issues, and other people are able to handle things. Dick can handle Bloodhaven on his own pretty well. Robber and the Birds are doing okay. Tim has his own adventures, so they prove him wrong, but I don't know why, besides trust, what else is the reason why he wouldn't be able to take a night off, or, a couple days or a week or something. So, yeah, I don't know if the comparison works. I would think that you could, but perhaps, yeah, Metropolis versus Gotham, that is an apple and an orange, and you shouldn't do it. I find it interesting that Tracker actually listens to his handlers when they tell him to back off and leave, because this is something that we don't normally see people do. They just decide to go on ahead and keep doing what they feel like they need to do. I liked this technician. I thought that the technician was a woman until later on when they used the he pronoun, maybe because he looks like Clancy in Nightwing, so I don't think that is racist. Really does look like Clancy. So I thought, oh, it's a cool chick with short hair, but it's actually a man. I think I already talked about Murder Fugitive. We get some history of Martha Kane here, aka Bruce's mother, dating someone who is wrapped up in the mob. So we get some background into her, and then we also get a connection between Celia and Bruce because of this, because Bruce doesn't know as much about his mother, and Celia was good friends with her. So it's an easy in for Celia, which of course is not a good thing. Let's see. Oh, this is, I don't know if I've ever seen, what's her name? Tammy Fox in a comic. Besides, wasn't she in Batman Beyond? I think that it is, isn't it? Now I don't see her name, but I'm pretty sure. Lex Luthor. Yeah, calls her Tam. Bruce does anyway. So, anyways, I just thought that that was pretty shocking. I know that there was something with Oracle popping up here. Oh, there we go. Oracle is helping Batman in his business and his business life, which I appreciate. So, looking at both sides. And for Alan, her hair is pretty good, I would say. Got the bob. She's got the headband, which I try to wear headbands from time to time, but they really hurt. Give me a headache after a while, but I feel like they're pretty cool. Anyways, I like how, as we get to the end here, the Batman subverts my expectations and doesn't immediately attack Tracker and actually tries to help him because he feels like, hey, you're doing some good work here and you're not using lethal means. Why not team up? But then, of course, Tracker takes him out, and then Batman's taken out multiple times for some reason. He keeps popping up and then he keeps getting taken out. And then Tracker, of course, dies later on. I felt like it was a pretty anticlimactic death. I mean, he was doing really well, and then all of a sudden he loses his footing and falls to his death. Um, the the fact that he says mother, I thought was interesting. I guess he's been watching Batman versus Superman. And then the entire time I was a bit suspicious about Cecilia. And we actually find out that indeed she is going to be pulling the strings, and she's going to be tearing this city apart. So I think that's all on chapter 1 that I want to share. So let us continue on to chapter 2. Uh-oh. Okay, chapter 2 is called Duplicity. And here is the cover. Steph is going to be in the center. You've got Celia, aka Athena, which that's a point I'll bring up later on. And then her family there. So we certainly get an info dump with who Celia is and how she is everywhere and all of her people and network. And she ends up going through the different family members. I found it interesting that Huntress was mentioned as a family member. And Steph, of course, is mentioned. And she's where we're going to focus our time today, or on this chapter anyways. And I thought, OMG, about Orpheus being plugged as well. That was someone that I did not expect to see again. And I don't know why Dinah pops up necessarily, because it's almost poor writing, and that you should have laid out all the people you want to focus on, and then more people get added in here. Spoiler is described as the least well trained. Whose fault is that? That would be the Batman's, because he kind of dropped her. Celia's team has psych profiles on all of the members, which I found pretty interesting, but it makes sense. Know your enemies, right? It's certainly starting to feel a bit like a movie now. You've got Celia losing her son. She wants to take everything from Batman, but also she wants Gotham. So it's just like, well, we've kind of been here before. Steph is approached to help somebody out and I guess go for the quote unquote weakest member, which I have a problem with, but there we are. Steph talking to Tim about, what is her role on this team, and why isn't Batman continuing to train me? And of course, she's in this position. If someone needs her help, why not take someone up on that, even though it's not very wise, because she doesn't have the capabilities to figure out and do background on that woman or the man who has offered her the job. Steph and her mother, it was a bit puzzling to see her mother look like this. I don't think that she looked like that in BQM's run, but here we are nonetheless. More background on Martha, which was certainly pretty interesting. I find it interesting that, of course, Steph being the most vulnerable one, let's go after her first. But is she so, I mean, she's kind of portrayed, I don't know, not idiotically, but I'm just disappointed, I think, again, of how she is portrayed, because, yeah, she takes it. I mean, it seems a bit suspect. Someone's asking for help, but how many times has she probably witnessed? Have we witnessed as readers that there's more to the story than is being told to her? So she goes on this little trip. We actually find out this was actually pretty fun. It could have been a Birds of Prey story, which I don't know why Steph is called a member of the Birds of Prey. That's a bit suspicious. Dinah was kind of training her, but not really. And you find out that actually this is Selena Kyle, and she's also pulling a job. So there are like multiple jobs going on. Lewis, this guy that Catwoman is with, is clearly a misogynist, says, you women just can't be happy until you've done everything you can to ruin a man's life. Not me. I'm through being walked on by high heels. I'm in charge now. And then Catwoman says, I think you have some issues with women, Lewis. So that was pretty funny. I don't know how, but Freeway, which is Celia's kind of go-to man, somehow is in the police station and is able to offer Lewis a deal. That seems suspicious. There were icy word balloons, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to. Oh, there it is. Look at this icy word balloon. You know how much I like that. I'll grieve for Nicholas. Oh, because Freeway asks, would you rather pretend your son isn't dead? And then she icically says, I'll grieve for Nicholas when all of Gotham City's under our control. So we find out that this woman was an actress, the one who pays, I guess, Stephanie or hires her. Stephanie, I think, ends up not taking the money and saying, that's just who she is. So it's Eleanor Sanders. She's dead. She's actually mentioned earlier at the lunch with Bruce. So I guess just to have her exist before the end, but this just doesn't make sense. Give what the motivations are for Stephanie being duped. It doesn't come back around, I'll tell you right now. So this was just a weird play that I was worried about Stephanie, but in the end, nothing really came of it, because something could have happened with this, but there's just so much going on in this whole story that it just, unfortunately, yeah, not a lot happens here. Okay. We're on chapter 3, POV. Here's the cover. Now we're starting to focus suddenly on a couple people. So Dr. Excess and the Bug are going to be the people that we focus on here. Stephanie Brown was focused on before, but with no bad guy, unless I guess you could maybe think that it's Celia, but that's an interesting juxtaposition. And here you have Bug with all of his surveillance stuff. And we're going to be looking at Dinah, who wasn't mentioned at all, really, and Orpheus. So, yeah, this issue doesn't really, I think, jive with what is going on previously. It just throws us into new random action, if only to focus on these Bug and the Doctor characters. I say again, OMG Orpheus. We don't really know who this senator is. I think it's like Senator Bowman or something like that. But later on, you find out. I just don't know if it's good storytelling. You could almost compare it to the Chuck Dixon way of Birds of Prey, where you have this cold opening and then more is explained, maybe, or it just goes on. But this is just like, it's almost as if we should have known who the senator was. And actually, we should not have been expected to know who he is, but we're made to feel that way. There's info dumping at the end of that he has some sort of medical issue, and he's given this serum that pops up multiple times. Tracker had that serum as well, and it usually just gives them some strength and makes them like 200% themselves, and then they usually die. I do wonder why it's so unstable. Potentially, it's just unstable for the people that are not in the best health to begin with. We'll see that again, I think, at the end of this issue with, this friend that Orpheus has. We get to know more about Orpheus, or at least see the stuff that we should have had he his own series or connected from Orpheus Rising and things that we were promised. We get some info like that. But, oh, I miss him. I think he could have been a fun character. Trying to see if there's anything else. I know that Oracle pops up and talks to him, and they compare notes about technology, but that might have been a later thing. So, Dinah appears, and apparently she has moved to Gotham. She takes Orpheus to a library to recover, which I thought was pretty funny. And she makes a joke that a friend tells her to read more anyways. So that's why she's in there. So that's something that I don't think I've seen in Birds of Prey yet, just her moving to Gotham City. And I guess we'll find out more about that. And yeah, so there's Oracle, and then right below you've got Orpheus's own Oracle guy too. And yeah, unfortunately, tragic results just because he had that friend in the neighborhood, and then unfortunately he was killed because he was given that serum, but he could write his last words on this story that he had. Been on into chapter 4, Identity. I was pleased, as I'm sure you are not shocked about, that Huntress appears. So here she is on top of a playing card. So that's not the first time that we've seen the playing card art theme. We saw it in issue 1 on that. And this is the Suicide King. And he is the focus here, but he also comes back at the end, and Huntress is able to get her revenge to a certain extent on him. So Huntress has a connection to the Rossettis from when she was young, and it makes sense that she is involved since she wants to, of course, take down crime families. So I'm glad that she does play a part, though it's interesting that she is mentioned in the dossier as being a part of the Batman family. I think that's incorrect. But, Celia can't be 100% correct. Agent Chase from the DEO, pops up. So again, another side character that makes their way. There's just, one of my criticisms is that there is just entirely too much going on in this story, even though it's 8 issues. There's just a lot going on. So here's Agent Chase. The deal we find out with Santos here, that Batman is supposed to keep the Batman family away from the Rossettis because an ATF agent is undercover, and Santos happens to be that ATF agent. So even though I thought Batgirl was on the down and down, he's actually still on the up and up. Batman and Huntress. Huntress doesn't listen to Batman, which is her right, since she isn't a part of his inner circle. He says, I want you to leave Gabrielle Rossetti's, did I say Rocchetti? I may have earlier in this episode. Rossetti's organization alone for the time being. And she says, you're joking. Rossetti's been aggressively expanding his business during the past 3 months. He tells her about the agent. And then she says, I don't care. I don't work for the ATF or you. As far as I'm concerned, Rossetti needs to be shut down now. The feds can make their case later. So, man. I I can appreciate it, least, which is interesting. Like, I don't know what he's doing down here at the bottom left. It's almost as if he's about to backhand her. I guess he's just gesticulating, and she's like, "Get that hand out of my face." But she even said, "I'm not one of your inner circle. I'll make my own decisions." So I can appreciate, I think, Donovan, listen up. I can appreciate that Batman does go to her and he does try to have a conversation, and he is open and honest about, I would like you to do this. This is the reason why I'm asking you to do that. But I think it's also her right that, I'm dealing with this the way I think it needs to be dealt with. I am not a part of your team, so you can ask all you want, but it's my own prerogative and I don't have to listen to you, which might be childish, but given how she's been treated, I think she could, potentially do that. And I will say that in the end, she does end up helping out the team, and I think he treats her more respectfully than I think he has in the past. So I do approve of that. We find out that Helena teaches third grade, which I don't know that I ever knew which grade level she taught. And at this point in time, I was wondering, I began to notice this trend that, hey, we're focusing on a couple individual members of these different families, but I wasn't sure why this trend began with three, unless, like I said, issue two with Celia and Steph. But the covers starting with three start mentioning names of the network family. So at the end, I note that there is a powerful, oh, that must have been with the, you get to see all of her training and what she does and being a teacher and things like that. And I made note that at the end, she has a powerful statement. So we do see, I like some of these action sequences with Huntress and Suicide King. It's a pretty intense battle. She also has to make a decision here of, does she let these people die? Because he's pretty sick. He actually sets up this house that she comes into, like the scene that her family were killed, except they're all drugged. So then she just has to make a decision of go after him or save them. And luckily she makes a good decision. Um, Oh, yeah, here. So, Agent Chase is saying I can arrange protection for them or at least put them under surveillance if there's family, because now they know who Helena is. And Helena actually removes her mask and says, "My family's dead and I have no friends in Gotham. It doesn't matter who knows who I am anymore." And I just thought that was really powerful. I mean, certainly it shows that that might be reasons for what she does and how she acts, that she really has nothing to lose. But I also think it shows how, strong of a woman she is, that she is able to withstand all this. She's on her own, and here she is. She's making it. She's doing okay. Okay, chapter 5, interrogation. We're going to focus on Tim, aka Robin, and Freeway. And here we have Freeway in the rain, in the puddle there, and Tim Drake is dead in this issue. Oh boy. Well, it seems like as the issues are going along that every member of the network owes a debt of gratitude to Celia. That's usually what their backstories cover, that she's able to get them out of some sort of situation. I guess as the series goes on, we certainly see the importance of each of the members of both teams and how they add to those teams. I think it's easy for us to recognize that with the Bat family, but more needs to go into it with the network because we don't know them at all. So who are these people? Should we care about them as villains? Are they worthwhile villains? Things like that. And even with the Bat family, you have a bit to prove with certain members like Steph, because they said that she's vulnerable and the weakest link, and Huntress because she's usually on the outs, and Orpheus, who's not really had much play time. So there's some space there. I am surprised, even though we gave Dinah some time. Nightwing doesn't get too much time, and Oracle gets zero time. But it probably makes sense. Oracle doesn't get any time in terms of Celia doesn't know her, because I don't think anyone really should. but it's also shocking that she doesn't know that there's some sort of technical handler. So, anyways, here is Tim. Freeway is a really good fighter, and Tim really has to improvise, which he throws a kitty cat, which is not, some people would be upset about this. At one point, so a lot of this is like a chase and capture Robin, and Robin's able to get away for a while, but then he's gassed and his mask is removed, which I thought was really interesting because this does not happen to Tim Drake. We know how he feels like his identity, how important his identity is, how angry he was when Steph learned of it via Batman, and a bit flabbergasted when Barbara knew who he was. But his fingerprints are false, which I thought was an interesting detail. And another criticism, I don't know if I've mentioned this at all, just that these seem, even though Celia is and the network are connecting, these just feel like individual issues. But Roger Sloan, this reporter that Tim is trying to find, he ends up getting killed, but Roger had tried to track down Bruce Wayne and say, Bruce, you're in danger, and he was arrested and all of that. So he pops up in different places, and so he's able to connect as well. But Roger's the one who, I don't think we find out here, Tim is, that's why Freeway's after Tim, is because Tim got some information from Roger, and Roger's trying to get that because Roger found, no, Freeway's trying to get that from Tim because Roger found out or knows about Celia. I think that might be it. Goes to a hospital, which doesn't often happen, but I guess that one question I asked of, would you take Batman to a hospital? I feel like I asked that a couple episodes ago. I guess this is how it works. You just keep your mask on and get served or serviced by someone who you helped. I think that's basically it. Oh yeah, so all that information, they're looking at it, and then at the end there. Okay, winding down. As you can tell, my interest level is waning in this story here. This is 6, and we're going to focus on the technician. I kind of wonder how the writers decided to pair who with whom, and where in the story they would also pit them up against one another. But we also, it's not only the technician, but I feel like that golfer guy also comes in. But anyways, the technician, almost like a Gotham City version of Toyman, but still I feel like an interesting person. Oh yeah. Oh, so Babs is here going through all that information. Thank you, Barbara. And there's some background of some shady deals and who Roger was and how Roger was able to get that information. Cass pops up in this one, saying one word, which seems like that's the way to go for Cass. And the technician ends up getting taken by the family. And now the network has to basically, which is funny, I've started watching Clone Wars, and at one point Newt Gunray, I think, is taken, and Count Dooku is basically like, if he can't rescue you need to get rid of him. And that's certainly what the situation is like here. And he is captured, and hell, I'm just trying to find where he's captured. Oh, am I in the wrong one? I must be. Am I? Huh. Well, anyways, I guess I was thinking about the whole wrong thing. So let me just, oh, this is unfortunate. Okay, well, for editing purposes, I'll be able to fix this on the audio. Okay. Chapter 6, machinery. Okay, I guess I was just looking at, yeah, okay. I like how there is a Bat family meeting. Here we go. I'm on the actual issue now. At one point, and that's true about Roger, they go through the information of Roger and everything. At one point with Cassandra, they do say, oh, and this is an interesting scene here with Barbara working out and Dick being there, and Barbara is catching Dick up because he's been doing his own thing. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it, but Batman at one point calls Cass Cassie, which seemed really suspicious and didn't seem to fit. I don't think that I would call Cassandra Cain Cassie. I think of Cassie Sandsmark if I were to do that. So Cass or Cassandra. Barbara's hair when she's exercising looks pretty blonde. Just to bring that up to the attention of my chief hairstylist correspondent. There's no one Bat family member focus in this particular issue. We've got Renee Montoya and Crispus Allen as the side characters trying to figure out what's going on with this whole thing, the interrogation and everything, as you can see, of the people that were using some of the technician stuff. Batman at one point asks Oracle for some difficult things and says that they're difficult, but she manages them easily. Like for anyone, it'd be difficult, but she manages them well. And I thought, wow, that's approval right there from Batman and praise. And then this Roger Sloan guy, as we see. Oh yeah, here we go. You never ask for anything easy. LexCorp systems are better guarded than the Pentagon. And then, yeah, so I guess there you go. He just trusts that she's going to be able to do it. So this Roger Sloan, I think it's the last time that we make mention of him. He seems like a loser, but he was able to connect all these pieces, which I don't know if it's believable or not, but I think it makes that story sad. Just this guy crying out for Bruce Wayne that he has information and no one listening to him and him just being shush. I feel like we've seen that in films from time to time. Okay. And now we're going to get into the one I was talking about. 7. Yes. Okay. With this guy, apparently an all-American man. I don't know. This chapter 7, Precipice. We've got Batman and Cass and Nightwing in the background. And then this guy, Mulligan of Death. Okay. So at one point, the technician is actually captured. And as I said, let's take care of the technician. For whatever reason, don't rescue him. Just get rid of him, which is really interesting. This guy, our Mr. Mulligan of Death, his narration boxes all seem to be motivational messages, which completely changes from previous narration boxes. He seems maybe like an all-American dad from Pleasantville, but he is not. Let's see here. There's at one point where I feel, yeah, look at this. Batman says that if the technician tries to escape, he tells this to Cass, cripple him. Do you think that's inappropriate? Do you think? I think so. Good thing that Barbara's not there, is all I have to say. So Robin almost sneaks up on Nightwing, and this actually presages Mr. Fun actually sneaking up on Nightwing and knocking him out. And I'm actually surprised later on that Nightwing gets taken out so easily. I don't know. And he loses that fight. I mean, he gets hit, obviously. So now he's got these little dazed green things around his head. And he just, whoo, it is not good for Nightwing. But I'm just surprised, I guess, that he was able to get taken out so easily. Batgirl only loses the fight because of technology, and it happens to be Nightwing's technology, but it was another instance of, wow, how is this guy who looks pretty innocuous getting the upper hand on all of our fan favorite Batman fighters? I don't know. So Nightwing and Batgirl are out of the fight, and I feel like Mr. Fun could just grab the technician and leave, but he doesn't. I think that's just who he is, maybe. And I don't know. It's not like the technician was injured. He could have ran away, but the technician knows right off the bat because Mr. Fun is there that he's a goner. But one does wonder, I guess it's just easier to get rid of somebody than bring them back. So the background of Celia's rise to power is pretty interesting because the guy in the flashback, wherever we are, I guess it was in the black and white, is so frightened of her that I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me for him to be. I mean, she just blackmailed him and then later on she set fire to his building. But that made him so troubled that he ends up leaving his companions in Greece. And I feel like what comes later is even more troubling, but I don't know. He treats her very like, oh my gosh, don't even say that name. And I don't see where that is warranted necessarily. Okay, and the last chapter is Blackout. One of my criticisms, we have this owl representative of Athena, is that this Athena thing, I feel like that name came out of nowhere in the middle of the story and then it was forgotten and then it popped up again. I mean, that's Celia's code name, but it just didn't seem to be consistently there. And so the owl popped up a couple times, but here it's just like, oh yeah, that's right. She goes by Athena. Another time that Batman says something positive about Oracle. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it, but at one point he says, I can depend on Oracle's analytical skills to supplement my own. So he thinks highly of himself, but he knows that Barbara can help him out when he is missing something. I do wonder what happened to Steph. We pick up and we see her again. Oh, here, I did have a question as to why she's stripping, changing clothing in Tim's car. But I mean, it was just that storyline was completely dropped. What was going on with that? Dinah pops up again. Huntress. Here we go. Isn't this interesting? So Batman appears and says, I need your help. I'm not on your payroll, says Huntress. And he says, I can give you the Suicide King. She considers, and then she says, I'm in. So at least there's a begrudging, like, okay, I'll help you out. And thank you for giving me something that I want. Dinah mainly, I think her incentive on being on the team is because of Barbara. Certainly have an elaborate revenge scheme against the Rossetti patriarch. You'd think that you would want Huntress to help you out because she could, and she would probably be down with that. But I guess Celia is not about that. More background between more so the fallout between Martha and Celia, and Martha finding out that Celia is not on the up and up. Ooh, yes, there was an awkward scene between Dick, Dinah, and Huntress, which is really interesting. If only Barbara were there to make it all come together. I'm gonna have to find it. Will I be able to? Oh, is this it? I think so. Oh yeah, look at this. Okay. Man, even with these, I heard that. Oh yeah, because Dinah had used her canary cry. And then Huntress from off screen says, this is cozy, you into blondes now? And then Dinah says, what's that supposed to mean? And Dick says, ignore her, she's baiting you. Which is really an awkward situation. I guess maybe Dinah doesn't know that Dick has slept with Huntress, but you'd think that Barbara, being her biffle, would have told her about that. Batman at one point gives some praise to Dinah, calling her a good soldier. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find some of these points that I see. Santos finally gets out of the life, and hopefully he can start off with a good life there. Yeah, oh, there we go. Yeah, so the family comes together at the end, only the ones that know of each other's identity, which is Dick, Tim, I almost said Steph, Dick, Tim, Cass, and Babs on Bruce's mother's birthday. And I liked that scene. I guess, is that the end? Yeah, that is the end of all of them together, and just A nice moment, Bruce not always opening up like that and saying he's proud to have them at his side. And then I guess my last point is just that Steph somehow knew she was played. I can't believe Athena and Freeway played me. I'd be better off working with Catwoman. And that wasn't really explained how she figured that out. Freeway, she could have, like, oh, he was involved, but I don't know, that actress and everything. So, whatever. Okay. Wow, that was almost as painful as I thought it was going to be. Okay. So, overall, it could be slow at times. I thought that 8 issues was entirely too much. I don't it so I guess slow at times. It just seemed to be dragging on and elongated too much. Not all of them were all these issues were focused on a specific member of the network or the Bat family. So it's just like, oh, well, how are we filling space in between this? If we're not talking about a particular member, what else are we doing? And they could have, because they were doubling up sometimes. They didn't give too much space to Cass or Dick, and Orpheus and Dinah were teamed up, and Dinah wasn't even originally mentioned. So it was just really confusing. I felt like they had an idea, but they didn't execute well, and they should have rethought, I think, their formatting and maybe the points on their journey. After the first 2 issues, which I took more notes, I think, on the first 2 issues, it seemed like they were just jumping around and there wasn't a great deal of flow from one issue to the next. And really, the only thing that connected Celia and the plan, Roger pops up a couple times, but then it's just like, I could have read this story or this particular issue by itself. It brings Martha into focus, which is something that doesn't happen a lot. I think it's happened more, in the modern era, like New 52 onward, but I've not seen it in the stuff that I've been doing with Batman. So that was interesting, and seeing what that particular side her life was. And I think also that was an interesting way for Celia to insinuate herself into Bruce's life, because trap him basically by talking about his mother. We also see the importance of each member of the Bat family, though certainly not all are present at the party at the end. And then again with Steph, kind of calls into question, what is her worth on the team. It was an interesting threat for sure. We've seen it before. Trying to destroy the Bat family was almost secondary, though, because Nicholas, aka Tracker, died. Then she started going after Batman, but it was more about destroying Gotham, and then actually is really about destroying the Rossettis. So it's just like overly complicated. Have one scheme and stick with it. But I think it answered the question of, like, what would an evil Bat family look like? So maybe that was the essential question, and then this whole thing was what it turned out to be. So out of 10 evil Bat families, I think maybe I will give it Ooh, I guess I'll give it a 7 out of 10 evil Bat families. Okay. Next up, I have some listener email. Okay, I've got 3. The first up is from Ian Prime, aka Ian Miller. He said, "Dear Stella, I want to say that I 100% agree with you about the Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane by Terry Moore being a big disappointment after the Sean McKeever run, even though I did get a few issues signed by both Mr. Moore and the artist Craig Rousseau, only because they were scheduled at cons I have attended, and Mr. Keever and artist Takeshi Miyazawa were not." Sad face emoticon. "I do really like Moore's series Motor Girl, but I've not read a ton of other stuff he's done. And these Birds of Prey issues really were not up to the standard that Chuck Dixon left. Also, the Maps Gotham Academy backup in Batman is amazing. I'm quite honestly buying the comic for these backups and just reread the whole run, so I'm pumped." Smiley face emoticon. Yeah, and she appears again. I don't talk about Batman in this episode, but she does appear again, so I also recommend it. I have to admit that I'm very much not a fan of the current. Oh my goodness. I'm not much of a fan of the current Nightwing run, but I'm not usually a Nightwing fan in general, so that's not too surprising. I was pleased to see Gun Bunny and Gunhawk back, though I'm sad about Hawk's fate, said emoticon. Ooh, kind of cool that Tom is interested in checking out the rest of this arc for Batgirls, even as someone who considers himself not part of the target audience. Anyway, very glad that you're still enjoying the back rolls as I am, and hope that Cass can help Steph get out of this mind control soon. Yeah, same here. Next up is from my Earth 2 BFF, Shayna. She says, Hi, Stella. I think my biggest fear for Batgirls is that there isn't going to be any substantial growth for our leading ladies and or not enough focus on the relationships between the three of them. I think a part of me also wants this to be the new Birds of Prey 90s and early aughts run, and I am expecting this to have a similar focus on the women and their relationships with one another, though I fear I am getting my hopes up if the last 10 years of Batgirl and Birds of Prey are anything to go by. Also, who doesn't love a good Phil Noto cover? I actually have Birds of Prey 47 and 48 signed by Phil Noto and hanging in my office at home. Those covers are some of my favorites ever, and I love looking at them every day. I'm glad you and Tom agree. Thanks for another great episode. All the best, Shayna. P.S. How do you feel about ancient Greek? And then P.S.S. Grad school's a bitch, but 100% worth it if you know it will lead to where you want to be. Smiley face emoticon. Congratulations on starting your program. Ancient Greek, I had to take that. I ended up staying one extra year at University of Virginia in order to get my double major in architecture and Latin because I had to take 1 year of ancient Greek and I enjoyed it. I mean, it kicked my butt in a sense of like I could kind of coast with Latin, just knowing that grammar really well. And then I really had to, take my time like, oh, wow, this is like learning Latin all over again, but a bit more complex and having 6 principal parts and more moods and things like that. So it gave my brain a workout, but I really enjoyed it. And if I got 100s on tests in that class, hashtag, shout out to John Mickelson. I had a great deal of fun with that. I'm sad to say that I feel like I've forgotten maybe all of it. Maybe not all of it, but yeah, that's just a bummer just because I haven't used it. So I've certainly lost it. And then yeah, grad school, thank you for that. I am having fun. I think I'm definitely putting the work in for sure. And that's yeah, this journey is exciting for me. And then just, what it will bring me to next. And the curriculum and instruction is, I feel like I've already said this. The curriculum and instruction is stuff that I've done, but the literacy is all like new stuff, which is just crazy, like learning all these terms. But it's been fun to get back into school and learn something and feel like I'm doing something worthwhile because at my job, I feel like this is not I'm not leading a good life. I'm not living my best life. This is not what I should be doing right now. So the school is like almost able to, it almost helps me alleviate some of that stress and discomfort. And then finally from Kensworth, aka Ken, says, Hey, so I just want to say I'm incredibly happy to have found this podcast. Oracle is the reason I got into comics and the DC universe through Chuck Dixon and Gail Simone's Birds of Prey runs back in high school. It is such a surprise and a delight to find a podcast dedicated to her. I can't thank you enough for hosting this show and dedicating your time to it. Smiley face emoticon. Side note, I haven't seen the recent Detective Comics run in any of your quickies, so if you haven't taken a look at them yet, I can highly recommend them. Mariko Tamaki has really nailed that mystery and intrigue, and and Babs is playing a coordinator role as they unravel this latest mystery with the Bat family. Mariko has been writing Detective Comics since 1034, but the current storyline starts with 1047 if you want a quick place to pick up. Much love, Ken. Well, Ken, that is very unfortunate that you told me this. I was skipping it because no one told me. I basically thought, oh, well, Barbara's only in Batman. Maybe she's not in the Detective Comics. It was my own fault. I can't rely on anyone else to find out this information. So that's why I hadn't been doing it. But I guess now I will have to potentially rectify that. But Yeah, Tamaki is certainly someone that I followed in the past, so I am not surprised with the praise that you have given her. So I guess I'll have to maybe catch up on some of that detective stuff and see what Barbara is doing since she's not actually been popping up in Batman for the past 2 issues, so maybe that's why she's over there. Remember, you can always send any questions or comments to batgirltheoracle@gmail.com and I will read it out for you. I actually have, because I went backwards, I have 2 comments from my YouTube video on part 2. So I guess I will read them next time because it won't make sense here necessarily. But one of them answers some questions that I had, and then we'll see what other comment it was. I'm sorry. I feel like I just was not all 100% on this story that I talked about. I'm kind of glad it's over though. So I just feel like I was hopping around. It wasn't as good, but I think part 2 is more cohesive for sure of this episode. So I'm going to take a break. And when I come back, I'm going to cover Nightwing and a full review of Batgirl's #3. But first, Zaius's Radio Hour featuring Sexy Villain by Remy Wolf. See you soon.